In this episode, we have a special guest. We have Patrick Grimes. He's a teacher that lives in a mobile home park, and we'll be talking about how teachers are being pushed out of these areas and how living in a mobile home park has really impacted his life positively for him to stay in this area. So Patrick is also a founding member and president of WRO, which is a community organization that's made a positive impact in the mobile home world. We'll talk about issues that some mobile home parks had to face and how they were able to build a community to protect and preserve mobile home parks. So I'm excited for you guys to listen. Let's get started. Welcome to the mobile home movement, where we showcase the beauty and affordability of mobile homes. Here we break false myths and share all the positive stories of how mobile home ownership transforms lives. I'm Franco Perez, and this is the Mobile Home Movement. So thanks a lot for being here, Patrick.
You're welcome, Franco.
So the first thing I actually wanted to start off with is we're facing a lot of conversation with stigmas around mobile home parks. Have you ever had to face like stigma issues explaining to friends or family about mobile homes and mobile home parks and what it's like to live in a mobile home park?
Well, certainly mobile home parks have a reputation in the community, and they have for decades. People talk about them as trailer parks, and the people who live in there are trailer trash. And I find that that's not true. The one thing that is related to the type of people who live in a mobile home park is that mobile homes are often the most affordable housing in a particular area.
Absolutely.
So at our mobile home park, we have all kinds of people, but we have a lot of seniors who live on fixed incomes. We have a lot of young families who can't afford a place with a yard where they can have their children play outside elsewhere in the Silicon Valley. A lot of people who are just struggling to make ends meet.
Oh, totally. And I think that's the thing, is that what we see in Hollywood is we see mobile homes being portrayed as a very negative stigma, and whether it's the news, they love to point at mobile home parks and that sort of thing, and there's a lot of bad stigmas around it. But when you actually take the time to go into a lot of these communities, you'll come to realize that these are very, very beautiful places, and they're in very nice areas too. I kind of say this thing, but there's apartment complexes that can be really run down and very bad, and then you have luxury apartments that can look beautiful and great, right? Yes, there might be some other mobile home parks out of state or out of area that might be bad, but it doesn't mean that all mobile home parks are like that, right? Yeah. Especially in the Silicon Valley where we're at. So the park that we're talking about is actually a park that was called West Winds. It's in North San Jose, right near the Levi Stadium where the 49ers play. It's also the heart of the Silicon Valley. There's a Google campus nearby. There's a Samsung campus right across the street. Lots of good food, lots of good dining. And Cisco is also very big in that area too.
We are in the middle of what they call the Golden Triangle, which is a whole lot of business, mostly office space. And so there's lots of people who commute into the area. So if you did live in our mobile home park, commuting to work might be very easy.
Oh, absolutely. I have helped so many people move in and out of that park. A lot of people, surprisingly, we have tech engineers that are making a huge amount of money, $300K plus, that choose to live there because that's what's convenient for them. and then they can walk to the light rail, which is right there, or they could walk to the Samsung building or the Cisco building next door, right?
And I see their Teslas parked in the driveway with the
Exactly.
charging stations, as I take my walks. Yeah.
Exactly. So there really is a variety of people in these parks, and lots of great people too. So we talked about the location. How's the vibe like, as far as like, what do you see around there? Do you see families going around? Tell me a bit more about the park living there.
Okay, well, as I said earlier, there are quite a few families there. We have a number of school buses that stop on, right outside the park. And in fact, it's an issue right now with people who don't want to stop for the school buses. I mean, I came home tonight, and one of the high school buses had let out. And there are so many high school kids walking there. And, of course, they want to walk next to each other and talk with their friends along the way. They're spilling over the sidewalk into the street, this huge crowd of people. So we have lots and lots of families who live there.
That's amazing. And then also, amenities-wise, people might not know this, but there's 3 clubhouses in that area. There's 3 swimming pools. They have a gym facility. You can rent out the community clubhouse if you decided to host an event and that sort of thing. And these are things that that aren't always offered in like apartment complexes and that sort of thing.
Well, and we have a lot of amenities because it is such a large park. I'm told that it is the largest mobile home park in the city of San Jose.
Correct.
The 4th or 5th largest in the state. So 723 homes. And yes, it's divided up into neighborhoods, and most of the neighborhoods have their own swimming pool, etc.
Yeah, really cool. So, and then I wanted to talk about this too, because this is something that, reason why I'm so passionate about mobile home parks is because it's like you said, it's affordable housing. This is really what's allowing for people to live in this area.
Yes.
And for you, for example, I have so much empathy for teachers, because teachers really build the future of our workforce and people growing up, and there's such a huge impactful role in our community. But I've witnessed and seen so many teachers getting pushed out of our area because they can't live here anymore. They can't afford to live here, so they're moving to Sacramento, to Fresno, to outside areas. They've already sacrificed so much by choosing a career that isn't maybe not the highest, right? Sorry to say, but also they're creating such a big impact by doing that. And then now, on top of that, we aren't providing enough housing solutions for them as well. Could you talk?
And that's a long-standing problem. The district I work for, Santa Clara Unified, did attempt to provide some teacher housing. So there is one apartment complex that they actually used some district land and built it. But there are far more teachers who would like to be able to use it than they can possibly house. Milpitas, which is a city next door to us, they've put out calls to parents. Hey, do you have a room that you could rent out to a teacher, because they're finding that teachers can't afford to live in this area.
Exactly. And are you seeing teachers move out and that sort of thing from being in that industry for a while?
What I'm seeing on the school part is that it's not just teachers, it's young families in general. Our enrollment is declining. It used to be Santa Clara was, a big bedroom community for the rest of Silicon Valley, and young families can't afford to live there. So if you already own your home, if say you inherited it from your parents, then you're there. But if you're just trying to get a foothold, you're just starting out in your career, it's really hard to make it in this valley.
Yeah, I can imagine. And speaking on that, how do you feel like being in this mobile home park has helped you or made a difference for you being a teacher in this area?
Well, when we bought, it was over 30 years ago. And so our family, we were starting a family. Our family was starting to grow. We needed something bigger than the place that we were renting at the time. And we looked around for something that we could afford. And alternative that we were wondering, okay, should we do this, is we could afford a house in Tracy or Lathrop. But if we continue to work in the Silicon Valley, then that would mean, an hour or two commute each way back and forth. And we said that's not the quality of life that we want for our family. So we had a friend who purchased a mobile home and hadn't really considered it seriously before, and found out, oh, okay, this hybrid model
I love that you said that.
is something that. Okay, it's not perfect, but it is affordable. It's affordable housing in this valley.
Absolutely. And just like you said, it's hybrid. And I want to elaborate on that, because a lot of people are against paying this space rent, right? And saying you're not owning the land, blah, 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 but you are owning the asset right above it. And that's the thing that people are mistaken by, is that you're owning an asset, and instead of your money going completely towards rent, let's say $3,000-$4,000. I'm going to ask you actually what you feel like the alternatives are if you didn't have this, but at least, let's say 1/3 of that is going towards the rent, kind of like a high HOA. At least 2/3 of that payment, if you're paying a mortgage, will go towards an asset that you own, right? And these are things that, unfortunately, I feel like me growing up middle class or with a low income family, these are things we aren't taught, right? The values and how much of a difference this can make. We're only really taught to focus on career sometimes, but we aren't taught how to make investments, where our money goes, how to build our net worth, and that sort of thing.
And real estate has traditionally been the place that you make an investment to make money, because over time, real estate tends to go up. Although, as we saw in 2008, not always. We had the dip there.
Yeah. And then so let's say you didn't have this mobile home maybe like 3 years ago. What would be your alternative options if you didn't? Do you have, I don't know your family situation, but how many people are involved? What kind of place would you have to get? What are the other options in this area if it wasn't a mobile home?
Right, and the reason we settled on a mobile home is, as I said, even though it's not perfect, it is the affordable solution. So at the time that we purchased 30 years ago, we had 2 children and 1 more on the way. The mobile home that we purchased is something that we actually were able to pay off completely in less than 15 years.
Nice.
So for the last 15 years, we have been paying only space rent. I look at that and saying, you cannot even rent an apartment that has the type of square footage that we have. And apartments generally don't have yards.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of attractive features to that.
There's an apartment across the street from actually just like 2 lights away that charges $3,400 a month for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. That's about 700 square feet, and then that you can't really house a family for that, right? And then on top of that, it's very small and that sort of thing, but the average home in West Winds are typically about 1,440 square feet. But I don't know yours.
Yeah, ours is an original 1975, and it's about between 1,300 and 1,400 square feet.
Nice.
So at that time, the double wides were 24 feet wide and up to 60 feet long.
Yeah.
So we have 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. We have a living room, a family room, a dining room, a kitchen. A laundry room. I mean, that's a lot of space that you would not get in an apartment.
Oh, totally. And I think one thing I dislike about apartments, too, is that you have to kind of park at another garage, or it's tough to park. But I know this is a small thing, but having that carport right next to your home is actually a big perk for people, right?
Yeah. Now we have the opposite problem in that most of the driveways are just single file. And so every night we have to do what we call the dance of the cars. In other words, the person who's leaving first in the morning needs to be on the outside.
Yeah. Well, in apartment buildings, they have that too. It's tandem parking, right? So it's like you sometimes have to go one after the other. Now, I definitely want to, one of the big reasons why I really wanted to have you here is because, West Winds before went through a little bit of a problem. There was a lot of issues that came about, a lot of unknowns and that sort of thing. Could you describe that? What kind of happened in the past year and a half or so?
Well, it's actually a little longer than that. So it was the first Friday in January, January 3rd of 2020. So the pandemic hadn't quite, had its effect in Santa Clara County yet. But that's when the park management, in other words, the managers who the landowners had hired to manage the park management put a notice on every single one of our 723 carports saying that the landowners had requested them to evict everyone by the end of their management lease 2 years in the future.
Jeez. Yeah.
So that, of course, created quite a stir. It got the attention of City Council. It got our attention. So the following Friday, there were a handful of us who had started to meet and saying, we need to organize. And we did get organized. We did get involved. There was a proposal that all of a sudden got resurrected at City Council to protect mobile home parks in San Jose with an added layer. It's not a silver bullet, but it would require an additional vote of City Council before the land could be redeveloped. And those of us in the core group, we shepherded that proposal through the Planning Commission, through the Housing Commission, for the City Council vote. We put flyers on every one of 723 carports.
The residents.
For the residents to show up. And there were 88 residents who spoke at that City Council meeting, Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. We had like 2 hours of public testimony. We went in there, and the best political minds that we knew of were telling us, okay, we sure hope, we have our fingers crossed that we can get a 6-5 vote in favor of protecting the 2 mobile home parks that were most in danger. We threw our weight behind, no. We need to protect everyone who lives in a mobile home park. And by the end of 2 hours of testimony, not a single council person wanted to be seen as being against all these voters. And it was a unanimous vote to protect all 58 mobile home parks in San Jose.
That's amazing. That's so important because, you guys basically, a problem arose, but you guys built a community of people and brought people together to really collaboratively create a solution, right? What were kind of some of the things that were involved? Let's say outside of this area, there's a park having an issue like that. How was the communication built? How did that come about?
Well, one of the things that helps in terms of communication is having a shared concern. And so since everyone was concerned about a potential eviction, it was a lot easier right then to get a group of people to say, hey, we need to stick together. We need to join together. We need to fight together. So at that time, we created a Facebook page. And so residents are able to log in there. They're able to check what other people are doing, share news, upcoming events. We organized a number of events for our community. So along with the push to get people to City Council, we also had a representative from a nonprofit law firm come out and speak to the community about, okay, what is mobile home law? What laws are we covered by? And the clubhouse was packed for that evening. We've had a webinar. We invited some folks on the East Coast who have made their mobile home parks into cooperatives and had them talk about their experience and what all it takes.
Yeah. And then was this all, and I'm getting into the details because I know you mentioned like Facebook group, you mentioned Nextdoor, are there platforms to get people connected and and because I don't know that there's going to be a group of people that's willing to door knock or anything like that, right? So
particularly in Silicon Valley, we're time poor. So getting people out to do that kind of work is difficult. But we found Facebook is our main way of communication. It does take someone to kind of administer and, keep an eye on the chat, make sure it doesn't get out of hand. But the more that people are able to interact with each other, the more sense of community we can build. So Facebook has been crucial in building that.
Yeah. And then you mentioned Nextdoor. What is that?
Nextdoor is another app that allows people to sign up, and then you can post messages about your particular neighborhood, and other people who say that they live in that neighborhood can see and respond to those messages. So somewhat similar to Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. And then what do you feel like is the importance of that community now? Or like the value of everyone connected and that sort of thing?
Well, with people connected, then we can talk with each other and we can try to chart our way forward. Now, one thing, if people are listening who are just trying to start this out, have to warn you that everyone is different. Everyone has their own opinion. Mm-hmm. So our group, WRO, is sold on the idea of our best long-term solution is for us to create a co-op, create a limited equity realty cooperative, and have that cooperative create the financing, negotiate with the landowners to purchase the land, to take that land out of the speculative real estate market, and know that we are, it's being run by and for the residents. That's our long-term goal. But there's a wide spectrum of people who feel differently. Yeah. There are plenty of people who are apathetic. They say, "Oh, we won this big victory back in March of 2020. We can go back to sitting on our couches again." You have other people who say, "Oh, you know what? I don't want to invest in a co-op. I want to own the land myself. I want the landowners to go through all the work of subdividing the land into individual plots and let me buy it for a cheap price so I can make a killing in the in the real estate market." So we have all kinds, and so it's a long process to build that community and to try and educate that community about what is possible and what isn't.
Gotcha. And that's great that you guys built that, because ever since then I feel like, or how would you describe, I know from what you said, the job isn't finished, but I feel like there was a big milestone that was accomplished, right? How would you say the transition was to the new ownership of the park and that sort of thing? How is it now?
Well, so as I said, the previous management said that they had been told to evict everyone by the end of their management lease, which was the end of August 2022 last year. At that point, the landowners hired a new management team, gave them a new 10-year lease. And so, we've gone through the honeymoon period where we said, "Oh, these guys are so much better. They are wonderful. They are perfect." And then we find out they're not perfect either. But having made those connections, we now can say to our management, "Hey, guys, we have hundreds of people who are, relying on us to give them information, and we think we need to hear from you. Set up a meeting with the manager, have the manager talk to the community," and we were able to get them to agree. We had a series of 4 presentations, and we had his boss over for another night. So that type of communication. As I walk through the park now, there are more connections that have been made through Facebook. People say, people know me as the guy with the hat, because there's a particular hat that I wear on my walks during the summer.
I've seen the hat, yeah.
And so people know me. I know more of them than I did before this whole process started.
Yeah. Wow. And then do you feel like there was a lot of change since the new management took over, or how do you feel that's been?
There has been a lot of change. They're different, and a lot of things are a lot better. And there are other things that, the management is enforcing rules in a way that the old management wasn't.
Yeah.
And some people like that and some people don't.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I want to touch on, because I'll be going to an event, speak to Congress about, we're facing a lot of entities that are trying to close down these parks, right? Now, where do you feel, what's your perspective of how important it is to have these parks in these communities, like metro areas like this? Where do you see the value of that? Do you feel like it's going to make it, how do you feel it's going to make a difference if these parks are closed down?
Well, as I said before, mobile home parks are affordable housing, particularly in an area as expensive as the Bay Area. So if people who are struggling to get by can't afford to live here, then they're going to have to move out. Okay, well, who are you going to have to fix your plumbing? Who are you going to have to put in an electrical light in your house if the plumbers and electricians can't afford to live here?
Yeah, that's a great point, because the working class people, the people that really make this place feel like this, this is a place for them to live. This is a place for them to feel financially secure and be financially secure. And it's so important that we have these places. There's this whole movement, it's called NIMBY. They say, not in my backyard. They're very against these, especially in Florida lately. But because it's misunderstood, like back to what we talked about earlier, they feel like this is what's drawing crime. This is what's drawing bad people to this area. But I love that you mentioned that these are actually the working people of this town, the teachers, the nurses, the waiters, the plumbers, right? This allows for them to be in this area and be able to grow a family in a nice area. And I'm all about equal opportunity. This is allowing for people to live here, whether you're born poor or middle class. This allows for people to get that step of security, that step out of that rental rat race, and have opportunity to be able to own something. Right?
And you mentioned the word equal opportunity. So let's talk about ownership versus living in a place. So right now, the rights of the owners are very well protected, as they should be. Yeah. If you invest that kind of money in a mobile home park, then no one should be taking it away from you. What we're saying as an organization is we also need to balance that with the rights of the people to remain there. So one of the good things about the city of San Jose is that we do have rent control. So we are not in a position like Plaza del Rey Mobile Home Park in Sunnyvale, where there was no rent control. They got bought out by some corporate entity, and their rents just skyrocketed. And because of that, they lost the equity in their homes. Because who wants to pay a lot of money for a mobile home park if your space rent is so high? So we're looking at, if we're talking to Congress about what we should do, I would say we need to find a balance. We need to find a way to encourage or support resident groups to be able to negotiate with the owners, to be able to purchase it, to be able to run the place that they live as a nonprofit corporation. As I said before, take that land out of the speculative real estate market. So this is now dedicated as a mobile home park and will continue being that way. And the people who live there don't have to worry anymore about the land being sold out from underneath them.
Yeah, that's a good, solid point. Man, so any thoughts that you feel like you'd want to share to mobile home residents out there, whether it's mobile home park owners or that sort of thing? I'm done with my questions, but anything you feel like you'd want to share?
So, as I said before, mobile home parks do have this reputation, but it's like any other stereotype. Are there some characters who behave in a way that is not the best. Well, yeah, but you know what? There are in all sorts of neighborhoods, not just mobile home parks. It's a mixture. Every person is different. Every mobile home park is different. And we need to stop painting all of them with the same brush. And if people are, if the one of the issues that's driving problems is poverty, then one way to address that is to allow people to be more secure in a place where they can afford, where they can spend time raising their children rather than having to go off to a second job just to try and make ends meet.
Wow, I love that. I love that you said that. It gave me goosebumps. That's why I'm so passionate. Man, I'm tearing up. Anyways, that's why I'm so passionate about this, because these families need these opportunities, and these stigmas are things that we face. And that's why we're building this show, is because we fight the bad media and we fight these bad stigmas. So I want to share these stories where it's great stories, right? A teacher that's been able to live in this area for so long and feel financially secure, a family that's been able to purchase their first asset and feel really grateful for it in this area. And we have to, as a community, share good stories to fight those stigmas. And I'm consistently seeking out stories like this. So if anyone out there is listening, we want to build a community and showcase that mobile homes in these parks are actually a beautiful thing. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot that you're here. I know that a lot of what you said is going to help so many people, and thanks.
Thank you for joining the Mobile Home Movement. Join us each Wednesday at 10 a.m. PST for new episodes, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, and we love those 5-star ratings.